And both under federal law and state law, if you're using on-call or standby status as a strategy for just-in-time scheduling or variable work schedule, one of the things that comes up is if I'm on standby status or callback status or on-call, or whatever phrase you're using, am I entitled to be receiving any pay? Is it considered work, hours worked? So under our federal law and our state law, the things that are considered are basically if I'm on call status or standby time, how much freedom do I have for that time? Can I use it for my own personal purposes? Are there limits on my activity? I mean, do I have to stay at home? Or do I have to stay in some geographic standpoint? Or do I have the freedom to move around geographically? Can I go to the store? Can I go play tennis? So long as I got my cell phone on. The more freedom I have to use on-call or standby status for my own activities, the less limitations or control over what I do, the more likely you will be able to take the position as an employer. That's not hours worked. We only pay you if you're actually called in. One thing I've run into recently, I have a client that's a larger utility, and they have IT technicians that have to be available for their users at all times. And so sometimes they're put periodically, these IT technicians, on-call status, and they're given a lot of freedom, okay? All they need to have is a smartphone. All they need to be able to do is receive texts, phone calls, or emails. There's no geographic limitation on all that. And so at the outset, when I started talking to this employer that wanted to use this system as a way to control costs, bring people on work down, that headcount down, and use more people on call, this sounded pretty good until I found, as is the case with a lot of IT technicians, when I need help from our IT guys, they don't come to my office, right? I call them. So what was happening is, Charlie, the IT technician, could go to his son's soccer game, but he might be on the phone at that soccer game, working with somebody at the employer, working through some sort of IT problem. So that was an instance in which I had freedom. I could go to my son's soccer game, but I'm actually handling work. I'm solving problems from other employees involving software or hardware. Well, guess what? In that sort of instance, when I'm actually handling things by phone or by text or by email, that's treated as hours work. We'll talk about reporting time pay, or what I call show-up pay. That's something that's going to come into play when we talk about varying schedules, work schedules, okay? And the whole idea is whether an employee who's on some sort of variable schedule process or program, whether if they show up for work, even if they're sent home, they receive some form of compensation. Now, right now, nothing in the federal law requires you to pay me show-up time so long as I do not perform any actual work, okay? Nothing in the federal law. We're going to talk about 8 states that require some minimum compensation for reporting to work, okay? And again, I think some of these legislative activities are a fallout from employee complaints over this process. Hey, I showed up. I burned some gas to get here. I left my son's soccer game early, and they turned me away. And I'm out the gas money. I missed the second half of my son's soccer game. I ought to be paid. 8 states agree with that, okay? 2 other examples involve city ordinances. Last year, San Francisco Retail Workers Bill of Rights, right, was enacted. 2 weeks' notice, of work schedule, increasing penalties paid to employee if my work schedule is changed. The penalty goes up the shorter notice I have. You tell me 2 weeks ago what my work schedule is. If it changes within those 2 weeks, you got to pay me a penalty, and the penalty goes up as it gets closer to the day I was scheduled to work. I'm guaranteed, if I'm a San Francisco retail worker, 2 to 4 hours of pay for on-call status. And this law applies to retail operators with stores in 11 or more states and with at least 20 employees in San Francisco. It's not supposed to hit the mom and pops. It's supposed to hit the larger employers. It's not just legislation, okay? We're also seeing some litigation. So here's Victoria's Secret store. This is a class action that's presently pending, and the class is seeking $25 million. And they're taking the position in this lawsuit. It hadn't been decided yet. They're taking the position in this lawsuit that under California law, if I have to call in to check my schedule, that is treated under California law as reporting to work, and that those folks that call in, not only is that hours of work, but any employee who's assigned on-call status should be entitled to compensation. They're seeking $25 million. Victoria's Secrets, not surprisingly, has announced an end to on-call scheduling, okay? About a year and a half ago, the New York Attorney General, he sent letters to 13 national retailers, Gap, Target, what else I got? Urban Outfitters, Williams-Sonoma. But 13 national retailers got a letter from the New York Attorney General that says, you know, I've looked at your on-call shift policy and the practice, and it may violate our reporting time law, okay? Reporting time pay law, excuse me. No prosecutions have resulted in New York, but a lot of these employers have ceased that or modified their process. So what am I saying? I'm saying we're seeing more legislation because of some of the problems employees are frustrated with the variable work schedules, and we're seeing litigation over it.